Hi, my name is Ka. If you like the artwork that I make in this video, I also have commissions available. I do custom characters, OCs, and more. When you commission me, you're not only helping me, but you're also helping out my son, Anino. If you do choose to commission me, you'll be helping us find a better place to live. The link to my commissions form and guidelines are in the description. Now let's get into the video. So I would like to say that my Earth Quintuple Zero series is pretty much almost done. However, today I'm going to be basically looking over all my characters in my lineup and seeing if there's anything that I need to change. Recently, I've been looking at a lot of portfolio review videos and trying to gauge on how I can change things in my own portfolio that I've seen critiqued in others. And I will say, personally, I do struggle with putting more expression and more fluidity into my art. And I've always had that issue ever since I was really small. So today I'm going to be challenging myself and pushing those boundaries with these characters in the lineup. I think it's a bit crazy how I've gotten, again, this far with just one character, which is Dahlia. And then I expanded upon all these other characters specifically because of her. I think it's kind of crazy to think. And if you're a person or an artist who typically makes characters, I recommend trying to think of this too, like their story, and thinking about who would be in the story with your first character that you made. But anyway, as I'm going to adjust and change how these characters flow within this lineup, I'm also going to talk about overall my Earth Quintuple Zero series as a whole, like all together, like how it started, what I'm thinking with this story, and everything else I might have missed in previous videos that I've made regarding certain characters in this series. So as I said in the beginning, it all started with my first character in the lineup, and her name is Dahlia. And she became a character way back in late 2023. And she was one of the first characters I've drawn, like just bust-wise and portrait-wise, right after I graduated college. And if you don't know, I went to college for 4 years straight during the pandemic. And for me, it was very, very draining. And after I graduated, I had no motivation to create at all because I felt it was all being pushed into projects while I was in college that I wasn't even really passionate about. So even just picking up like my pencil or my stylus and trying to draw something with something I'm not really into or I wasn't into right after college, I just wanted a break. And so I didn't create until towards the end of that year because I graduated in 2023 and I didn't want to create anything. And then towards the end of that year, I was like, let me see if I could draw like how I was in college just to see, or maybe I can just draw for fun and draw this bust. And so here we have Dahlia from that. I also wanted to test my creative skills and just overall draw something I was inspired by. Like I think I mentioned in the previous video regarding Dahlia that her hair was heavily inspired by Hobie in the Spider-Verse movie that came out in 2023. So that was heavily inspired by that, and I just wanted to put it on like a woman character to see how that would look, and then just also tweak some things and maybe make her look a little bit more interesting rather than creating like the fan art of something that was in that series. But no, yeah, after I made that bust of Dahlia, I will admit I did not draw after that for like about a year because, again, college burnt me out super bad and I didn't want to create anything. And again, 4 years in college, no gap years, and only been creating for 4 years, especially since, along with college, I was also running my own small business at the time when I was selling like art prints and stickers and trying to market that stuff when I was still in college. So having all that on top of, oh, can I still create like anything else that I want to or start making my portfolio right away? It was really hard for me to get started on that, even though, yes, I probably should have since my skills were super fresh right out of college. But if you've been in college and you want to practice something that you've been studying for 4 years straight without no breaks and doing things on top of it like work, or maybe you have kids, etc., you would probably know that it's very exhausting to try to push yourself to do something when you have all these other things on your plate. But I digress. So as I created Dahlia, I didn't start back drawing or start drawing again, sorry, until 2025, like early 2025. And that's when I got my iPad. That is what I use to draw now. So when I got that and I was thinking,
what could I possibly draw? Like first I was just doing random sketches just to get a feel for the iPad, but after that I was like, maybe I can expand more on this character that I made in 2023 because it's just a bust. And I'm wondering, I don't really have a lot of original characters like full fleshed, besides like in this Earth Quintuple Zero series. I don't really have a lot of people that I can just create. Well, I guess I can create more, but like I don't have any like full flesh people that I make all the time. I just have these characters. Maybe I should start doing that more often. But I want to get this finished first so I can complete this concept art portfolio. So again, beginning in 2025, sorry, I get a little sidetracked. I started fleshing out more of Dahlia's personality because in the very first one, like in 2023, I had her crying the black ink tears. And so I then started sketching more busts like front facing and totally from the side because the very first one was 3/4 view. And so I wanted to play with a couple of expressions. And I was also trying to think about where she comes from as well as who else would be a part of her world. Because if I'm going to have a character and I'm going to expand more on a character, I need to think about background and stuff like that. I thought about the worlds that she and these other people that she would come in contact with would reside in. And I tried to flesh out rough concepts of that, such as when Dahlia is like on the cityscape. If you've never seen that before, I'm gonna put it on the screen here. Or if I thought about like when she was tagging certain buildings with her ink powers, I also have a very rough sketch of that I never completed. I actually made that one into a separate visual development piece when she's interacting with another character in this series. So after I got that idea of what places or what place that she might reside in, that's when I started thinking about who would meet her in such places or what kind of personality or person or thing or whatever could meet her and be a part of her world, and how she would be when she encounters said thing, person, or whatever in a world that she's in. Which leads me to my second character, not specifically in this lineup, he's further down the line. My other character named Seth, who I thought would be like her main love interest. And I also did a video about Seth separately as well. I think it was like my last video. If you want to go check that out after this, so you can get a little bit more on his backstory. But Seth, to me, is the main love interest for her story, Dahlia's story. When thinking and creating Seth, and mind you, I didn't think of the names first. I thought of them after they were fleshed out and made into characters. I also thought of ship names. So like Dahlia and Seth, you got Death and they're kind of gothic. Anyway, besides the point. I was thinking about Seth as someone who I thought would be a main turning point for Dahlia in her story. Because the over like arching, or how should I say, the world that they're pretty much in is like apocalyptic slash post-apocalyptic, even though there's still remnants of the mutant plants in this place. And so I was trying to think about how Seth would kind of navigate or guide Dahlia through a place like this when she's been by her lonesome before meeting Seth. And again, I expand more on Seth's role in his specific video that I made, but when I created Seth, then it turned into other characters such as Noah. And I don't have a bunch of different things about him specifically on this channel or anything, but he is possibly a second love interest for Dahlia, is what I thought of, because he was supposed to originally be what is Seth, but I thought his character design didn't fit well with Dahlia. So now he's Noah. And just to make it clear so you guys know who everyone is, sorry this is so late into the video, but Dahlia is the very first person all the way to the left. Seth is the one that's second to the last one. And then Noah is right next to Seth. Like to the left of Seth is Noah, the one with the big, strong arms and whatnot. But I'm going to talk about now the last character in this lineup, who is Ivy. And when I created Ivy, or I was thinking about Ivy, who I didn't know would be named that later, I was thinking if we're going to have a protagonist in a story and someone who's like on an adventure, I'm going to need an antagonist or a villain, or maybe even a neutral party or morally gray character, something that would somewhat oppose what's typically protagonistic. So that's when I thought of this character all the way to the right. I wanted to think about how would someone or something be opposing to or how that thing would oppose the protagonist in this story. And as I mentioned in a lot of previous videos, it's post-apocalyptic or apocalyptic because it's ran over or like taken over by mutant plants who do not mess with the industrialism or cityscapes of mankind. So in retaliation, because the plants feel that they're not more so incorporated into those spaces like cityscapes and a lot of commercial areas, they would just take over and then make their presence known like, hey, we're here too. And you can't just like push us to the side or cut us down, etc. So I'm trying to think, would this thing or character relate to said mutant plants in order to become an antagonist? And a little disclaimer, I know I'm talking a lot about like these possibilities in this story that I have created, but if I'm being completely honest, I originally made these characters and had this story because I dreamt of this possibly being part of an animated series or maybe like an animated movie concept, something of that nature, but that's just what's been going on through my head, and this is the story I would like to tell. Given if these characters are in a portfolio, I'm totally fine with it being used for anything else, if not that. But this is my headcanon for the characters that I've created, and I'm happy to share that with y'all if y'all are willing to listen. But I'm gonna get back into what I was saying. So the mutant plants are basically an antagonist to the people who are trying to survive basically in cityscapes or what they're used to knowing as commercial areas and stuff like that because it's convenient for mankind, not necessarily for plants. So me thinking of this antagonist, it has to relate to the mutant plants. Am I just going to create a plant? Maybe not, because again, I'm also thinking about that morally gray. How would that make, or how can I think of a person or thing that would be morally gray? And so I've come up with the concept of making someone a hybrid of mutant plant and human. And for me, Ivy was like a perfect mesh of human and plant that I thought would be interesting if she had a point of contact with the main people that I made within this story, such as Dahlia, Seth, Noah, and eventually a few others, like the old, like hunched over man is Abel or Noah's grandfather, and maybe the child who is Thomas. Maybe something like that, or just some of these characters that aren't typically, also like plant related, or they're more so like industrial and whatnot, but I'm gonna get into that in a little bit. So after I made Ivy, I created Thomas, and honestly, I haven't expanded more on Thomas as I probably should have because he does play quite a bit in the story that I've made because Dahlia has supernatural abilities and so does Seth, but Thomas is kind of like in that middle ground where he's not necessarily like a super powered person either, but he can portray as someone who does have that because of the metal arm that I put on him. And I did that for a reason because I thought, maybe he could conduct electricity to fight back against the mutant plants and become kind of like a line of offense for mankind, if that makes sense. And along with Thomas, I also wanted him to be super smart because, like, again, his arm is a little bit rudimentary because he's a child. I would like to convey a story that he created his own arm or he built his own arm. And so, along with that, I also made a character that is a mechanical dragon. And I did a few videos regarding this mechanical dragon before, if you want to check that out after this. And I eventually named that dragon Estelle, which, if you didn't know, it means star or guidance. And so when I made Estelle, the mechanical dragon, I kept in mind that the person who probably created this dragon is Thomas because he's very smart. He created his own arm, but keeping in mind he's also like a 10-year-old boy, right? So I thought, how am I going to make a dragon that doesn't just look like a regular mecha type creature that you see in like a lot of animated series? How can I make this rudimentary, amateur-esque? Because again, 10-year-old, and in an apocalyptic world, there's not going to be a lot of resources typically. So I thought of a bunch of junk, like what types of things you see in junkyards, or what do you see in places that don't have a lot of use anymore, or what things don't have a lot of use anymore. And so I created Estelle with a bunch of broken parts, like an accordion, maybe like an old PC that's like in the 90s or whatever, like those box computers, or like maybe rusted pipes and like coils, metal coils for whatever, like industrial type things. And that's how I came up with Estelle, which I think would be part of a separate series. Like this would probably branch off. Thomas and Estelle will probably branch off into something separate, but still coexist with this post-apocalyptic world, if that makes sense. I'm so sorry if this is very confusing. I'm talking with my hands, even though y'all can't see me, but that's what's been going through my head, and whenever I'm making these characters and so forth. But also, along with Estelle being like a mechanical dragon and being built by Thomas, I thought if Thomas had to create a familiar from scratch, what would be the most beneficial since he has a metal arm that he uses to conduct electricity? And for me, it would probably, or what I thought was, it would probably have to be an animal that is large enough for him to mount, but also be able to move quickly and nimbly through the sky. So that is my purpose of making Estelle a dragon. And I had a bunch of different poses and tweaks for Estelle's design, but I didn't name her until after the design. Like most of these characters, you're probably going to see a theme here. I create before labeling something, but that's just my process. I don't know if I'm alone in this. You can let me know in the comments, but yeah. And I know like this is like a toss up. Like some people say, oh, dragons were real, or so no, dragons weren't real, but we don't have actual pictures of dragons, right? So I tried looking on Pinterest of possibilities of different dragons, and I don't like seeing a lot of like AI stuff on there, but most of them had dragon stuff. So I was like, whatever, I'll just expand on my own after like taking a look at like possible anatomy for some of that, or even like looking at different reptiles and see their anatomy for that. So I tried to see how their bodies were formed. After looking at a few, I went quote unquote rogue, try to see if I can design dragons from my own imagination after looking at a few that I saw on Pinterest. And I kept in mind that this would have to be a fast creature or a fast dragon, and that it should have a body that is able to like provide assistance to Thomas when quote unquote collecting lightning or redirecting lightning or electricity in the air and sky. And I'm not gonna lie, when creating Estelle, I also had like a lot more thought process. Like I was thinking more with Estelle than any other character because I'm so used to drawing humans and like humanoid type things. I'm not really used to working with mechanics or like items and making it into a creature, mind you. So I was like thinking and sketching, and I thought what didn't work with my thought process were some dragons, like the ones that I looked on Pinterest, were too big and bulky. And I'm thinking, if this thing is made of metal, it's gonna be super heavy. And so I'm like, that's probably not gonna work. So I opted for a more slim body type dragon that I feel would work better when it's in the sky. But yeah, so those are basically all my characters. I will probably be making more videos like sketching out different things for them too. Like Seth, I want to expand more on his supernatural ability. And then I also want to do maybe like different costume designs for Thomas since I already have two already. The one that I have right now that I'm using wasn't even his original. Like I actually made Thomas an idea back when I was in high school, like sophomore year, junior year type. And so I drew him in like my sketchbook. If I have a picture, I'll put it up here. But I created him in my sketchbook with colored pencils and pen. And I just redrew him now as an adult digitally because my skills have changed and my style has changed. So yeah, that was his original design, and this is the new design. I'm thinking since I already have two costumes, I could probably do another one. Maybe create like a pose sheet or maybe him interacting with Estelle. I think that would be a nice touch to the portfolio. But after that, after this lineup that is redone, I have Seth's poses as well as Thomas's like changing clothes and interacting with Estelle. That would complete my Earth Quintuple Zero series. And what comes after this, honestly, I already have another story in mind, and it's gonna involve Anino. If you've been listening into my intros, you know who Anino is. But yeah, he's gonna be part of my next project, so I hope you'll be on the lookout for that. But that's going to be it for now. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please leave a comment of anything, like literally anything, like what you thought of the story or what you think would have been interesting to add or anything like that. I'm super open to discourse in my comment section. But yeah, I'm gonna have to leave the video for now, but I'll see y'all next time. Take care.